Andrew Whitehurst, already a veteran of such Hollywood blockbusters as Troy and Lara Croft 2, is tackling one of the most challenging aspects of the film, its numerous digital FX shots.
I'm going to talk you through the climactic shot at the end of the film when the charges go off and the whole tower explodes and all of that kind of stuff. So Ed generally shoots me backplates. There's some sequences that are entirely CG, but this is one of the sequences where the background is real and we add CG elements into that. So what I get from Ed is a background plate like you can see here. This is actually animated. You can't really see anything move because it's a locked off camera in this particular instance. In the end I'm going to add lots of camera shake to it to make the shot much more dynamic, but it's easy for me to start off with something that's locked off. So the first thing which I did was I split this out, so I painted out the real tower because we're going to replace that with a CG tower. So we created a clean sky plate, and then we cut out these buildings to use as kind of like theatre flats to put in front of the explosion. So we've got real sky behind with the tower painted out, theatre flat foreground in front of it, and then the CG stuff goes in between those two. These circles here are sort of representative of how the explosion is going to work in terms of the amount of screen space it's going to cover, the size of it, the speed that it moves, all that kind of thing. So I want to add lots of camera shake to this shot to make it much more dramatic. Obviously it's a huge explosion, so if you had a camera on a tripod it's not just going to sit there passively, there's going to be a lot of movement. So I added a lot of camera shake to my CG elements, and I need to apply that same amount of camera shake to the static background element. So what I do is I put a rectangle in my 3D scene and I render that through my CG camera that shakes around. So what I end up with is a frame with a red block like this that wobbles around. And what I can do in the compositing process, which is where we stick all the CG and the real elements together, is I can take the real element and I can say, look at the movement of this block and follow this block. So you actually have the background element shaking around exactly the same as the CG element, which really helps to tie the two together. So the next thing we do is we actually make the things that you see in the film. So this is the spaceship here. You can see as it flies through the shot. You can see the camera shake on that. You can see how I've applied lights to it so that the lighting matches the real background, and you can see the real background here. So I'd look at the way that the sunlight is falling, what angle it's falling at, what colour it is, and then we would try and match that on this CG ship. So we've written some metal shaders and some glass shaders and some plastic and rubber shaders that go on this spaceship to make it look like a real spaceship rather than the wireframe that you see before. And then we'll take the elements that we cut out that show the foreground of the real shot, and we layer that over the front. And then with that, with all the camera shake in and some blurring and other tricks basically to make the CG look like the actual footage that was shot, we end up with the final composite, which is all those elements added together, and that's essentially how we did that one shot. And if you imagine doing that for all the other different shots that you see in that end sequence, all similar principles apply to all of those, and that's how we do it.
May 2004, and the team traveled to probably the most famous film festival in the world, the Cannes Film Festival. Here they will unleash their work on an unsuspecting film industry.
Activity readings on their personal locators.
So what's the plan?
Try not to die.
Nice plan. It nearly looked like a film at one point, did you say?
I saw it when it was really rough, like the roughest point, and then now like that's
Back in that Soho screening room, the verdict is good. And all of a sudden, for this group of filmmakers, the future doesn't look too bleak.
2 thumbs up from the producer, that's what we like to see.